Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Starting a new week. Plenty of NBA news to dive into. We'll talk a bit about the buyout market. We'll talk about some really important injury updates, a weird trade that finally went down. Lots to dive into. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, I guess we might as well just start right off with the Warriors finally have Gary Payton II, but for a little while there, it was looking like they might not. A lot of drama involved, maybe fingers getting pointed about medical information being withheld. This was a pretty bizarre situation that had four teams essentially stuck in limbo.
Yeah, four teams and four players who, outside of Gary Payton II, were all ready to suit up and start playing for their new teams. James Wiseman to the Pistons, Sadiq Bey to the Hawks, Kevin Knox to the Trailblazers, and Gary Payton II to the Warriors. So yeah, it was a somewhat complicated trade because there were a lot of second round picks moving hands and those sorts of things involved too. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on here. And the Warriors holdup was when they did their medical. And how this works is you do the trade call, and the trade call is everybody agrees to what the terms of the trade are. And 99% of the time, that's left pending physicals. Now, in some cases, if you're literally trading for a player's contract and you don't care, the physical will be waived and they'll waive the reporting. Good example, Patrick Beverley and to the Magic, right? The Magic, if they found something they didn't like on Patrick Beverley, it didn't matter because they're just waiving him anyway. And we're going to get to that down the line here. But the Warriors acquired Gary Payton II as a real player. So when they did their medical exam, it was this core muscle injury is not good and he shouldn't be playing and he's going to be out, months with this injury. And then the Blazers were like, no, he's been playing for us, which was weird because he played literally the night before the trade deadline. So a lot of back and forth on it. Ultimately, the Warriors, my guess is somebody said, hey, we saved about $100 million on taxes. Like, let's still push this deal through. So they pushed the deal through. And now my guess is what happens is the NBA will do an investigation. This happens about once a decade or so. They'll probably find that the Blazers withheld some form of medical information, and they'll probably either take a second round pick from Portland and award it direct to Golden State, or just take a second round pick altogether from Portland.
Now, there was some information out there that that with this entire situation that the Warriors felt like maybe there were some treatments being done to Gary Payton II. Now he's going to be out like 3 months, something like that. Could take that long for that injury to recover. And then there was this kind of back and forth of, well, it's the Warriors now negotiating with the league in order to figure out how they're going to be able to push this through. I saw a little bit out there about were they considering, can we still protest this? Can we still challenge this? I forget the exact terminology used, but can we still say something? Or if we just say, yes, the deal goes through, is that it? Like we're just accepting it and we can't still kind of raise that challenge. Was that part of the discussion to your knowledge?
Yeah, that was all part of it. And a lot of people went to, we'll just amend it, right? And people went back to the Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving trade, and that could be done because that trade happened in August. So there's no deadline. Once the trade deadline is passed, you cannot amend terms of a trade or anything. We see every so often, it happens about every 5, 6, 7 years, we'll see a trade get voided and sent back. And a bunch of people were like, well, yeah, it happened last year with Bol Bol. Well, that wasn't a deadline trade. That was an earlier season trade. It becomes a problem at the trade deadline because you're literally unwinding the entirety of the deal and sending guys back. Portland had actually waived Greg Brown in this trade to take 2 players in this and the other trades that they did, and they weren't going to be able to undo that part of what they had done. So that was going to be kind of messy. So it was all around. It was just a very weird situation that it comes up like this. So now we're in a spot where the Warriors are basically going to let the NBA handle it however they handle it. But that's why they couldn't amend the trade, because if it was as simple as amending it, probably would have seen Portland throw Golden State a second round pick down the line somewhere and everything would have been good and we would have moved on. But that can't be done after the deadline. So now the NBA will handle it however they see fit, and everybody's with their new teams, and everybody but Gary Payton II will presumably suit up or be available to suit up and play in their team's next game.
Yeah, and the Warriors have got to just be hoping that sometime in the playoffs they're able to get Gary Payton II out there onto the floor. Unfortunate news coming out of the weekend: Zion Williamson aggravates his hamstring, and now he's going to be missing several weeks after the All-Star break. Sounds like it really set him back quite a bit. So this is a tough blow for a Pelicans team that's already been without him for some time. There was some hope that okay, maybe post All-Star break he'd be back in action, and now he's going to miss some time now. This is the issue with hamstrings, because sometimes this happens where you can re-injure, re-aggravate the hamstring, and it can put you right back to square one. And that appears to be kind of what's happened here with Zion.
Yeah, I'd be remiss with our both having education backgrounds. We spelled aggravation wrong.
Did we?
Yeah, it should be an A.
You're right.
The only reason why I know is because at first I was, wait, Zion aggregation? Like, are we trading?
That's
Zion?
what. As I was typing it, I was thinking people are going to think we're saying aggregation.
Yes.
And so my brain went between the two. Hang on, I will fix that really quick.
There it is. I've only written that aggregation
goodness.
word like 27,000 times in the last month. So that's what
I wasn't even on our screen, so I wasn't looking at it in front of me. I'm looking at our news stories here, and I click over. I'm like, oh,
yep, there it is. But anyway, yeah, the actual injury, not funny as much as our lack of spelling ability here on Front Office Show.
It's Monday.
It is Monday after what was a long week, and
Yes.
At least for me, a very long weekend spent in the rain at a soccer tournament. Rain and cold, not a good combo at all, especially for us Central Floridians.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not something you're used to out there.
No, not even in the slightest. But yeah, Zion. Now I've even seen some people speculating, like, does he play again this year? Because they're saying this could be several weeks now. It's almost sounds like it's back to square one again, which is probably at least 3 to 4 weeks before you start ramping things back up. So that's really, really disappointing. Now, I've had a few folks ask, with things are we like, is this going to trip some of the protections in his contract, in his upcoming contract extension, where that'll go? That information is really under lock and key, and we know they exist as far as games played, but I believe those are tied to specific injuries, and I don't think a strained hamstring is one of them. But we'll find out. Somebody will find that out at some point down the line, and we'll find out, like, does any of those years in that upcoming extension, which doesn't kick in till next season, are they going to convert to non-guaranteed years, partially guaranteed years, much like what happened with Jonathan Isaac's deal with the Magic, or is it going to be something else? So we'll find out as that goes, because he's obviously going to play in, I think he's played in like 15 to 20-ish, 25. I don't even know how many games he's played in this year. But is it going to be a situation where that converts him? I'm looking it up right now.
He's played in 29. Yep, yeah. There it is.
So half the games now. Probably by the time this is over, he'll probably have missed more than half the season. I feel fairly confident in saying that. So yeah, we're gonna see where this all goes. But tough for the Pelicans too, who are they've slipped in the standings some. So they've got some work to do. It's now down into like it's no longer like, hey, we're gonna hand a top 20 pick to the Lakers in exchange for their top 10 pick is like an assurity load. It looked like for a couple months there.
Yeah.
Now it might be, I think 538's projected standings actually have them like right next to each other in the play-in tournament. I think they're the 9-10 seeds in the play-in tournament by 538. So yeah. So just rough times for the Pels.
Absolutely. And never what you want to see, particularly with a player of Zion's caliber. You want him out on the floor and performing, and it's unfortunate what's gone on with him on the injury front. Let's jump over to some signings, some things going on there. The Raptors, they signed Joe Wieskamp. Think that he can give him some, some 3-point help, give me a little bit of help on the wings. I'm not anticipating he's going to play a ton, but I mean, if you're the Raptors, you don't feel like you're going to make a big splash on the buyout market or anything like that. Not a bad guy to take a flyer on here.
Yeah, that's it. I think if you're Toronto, you're looking at it as, hey, we did the Acapurtle trade. That was our big addition. We're not going to do anything else major here via buyout. Wieskamp comes in. He was there on a couple 10 days, so they've obviously got some familiarity with him.
Mhm.
We bring him back in now for the rest of the season, and your hope is he becomes our version of Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Sam Hauser, who's playing great for the Celtics right now. Like we get our shooter who can kind of be our guy that we can work with. And very likely this is a prorated multi-year minimum
Yeah,
contract is what I would guess on this. It's probably not, it's probably coming out of the remainder of the MLE because that's the only way you can give more than a couple years. And Toronto did have a little bit of that left, and they are, under the tax line. So that's my guess is they gave him some of that, a little bit of a bump probably in this year's salary to get a couple of years that'll be attached, non-guaranteed, maybe a
yeah.
team option on top of one of those years, and then we move that forward. But this is good work churning the bottom of the roster.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. If you've got a little bit of that MLE still left to use, you might as well do something like this with it because especially if you can get those next years to be non-guaranteed
Mhm.
or a team option or whatever, like it's not gonna hurt you.
Yeah, as
Um,
long as you stay out of the tax, and presumably they have.
yeah, right, right. The Pacers have decided to waive Serge Ibaka. Now he's only appeared in 16 games this season. He's a name that people recognize from the past, but I mean, he's really fallen off quite. Is this it for Serge Ibaka, or do you think he pops up somewhere on somebody's roster?
It might be. There are a lot of open roster spots around the league
Yeah,
right now. There's, if you count in the two ways, there's at least about 24, or not two ways, the 10-day contracts rather. There's at least 23 or 24 open roster spots. A couple teams could use another big man, so maybe one of these teams that's a playoff team says, "All right, you know what? We'll bring him in and we'll have him, play for us and put him at the end of our bench." But Milwaukee is one of the best teams in the league. They were looking for another player that they could throw into their front court mix, and they were very happy to move on from him. So
yeah,
I think we're probably at the end of the line. Maybe he catches on for the end of the year, but I think we're probably done.
yeah. Agreed with that. Agreed. Reggie Jackson is going to go to the Denver Nuggets. It's a pretty good addition to the Nuggets after getting bought out by the Charlotte Hornets. Not a bad. We talk a lot about how the buyout market guys tend to not make as big of a difference as sometimes what it's all made out to be. But this year's buyout market is fairly interesting. There's going to be some names on it, and Reggie Jackson and the Nuggets is one of them. He wasn't great for the Clippers this year, but just in terms of giving the Nuggets another backup guard option, not bad. Not a bad addition for Denver.
Yeah, they needed somebody else who's a ball handler after trading Bones Highland. And
Yeah.
if nothing else, he's going to be solid for about 15 to 20 minutes a night in the regular season. So for the last couple months of that here, he'll, do well to nights where they spot Jamal Murray rest or just backing up Jamal Murray. He'll be solid. And Jackson has shot really well on spot ups over the last couple of years. He just hasn't seen as many of those with the Clippers. He's been doing a lot more with the ball in his hands. Got to kind of remember last season that Clippers team was a mess because Kawhi was out, Paul George was out a lot, and it really fell to Reggie Jackson to be almost the sole creator. And he did fine volume wise, like if you look at his counting stats, but his efficiency wasn't very good. I think in Denver, you'll see his efficiency pop because he's not going to be doing a lot with the ball in his hands. It's going to be, all right, spot up, or you're going to create secondary against a rotated defense and, those kind of things and get downhill. So I like this addition for Denver. He's a guy I know a couple playoff teams are interested in. Phoenix was also interested. And I think for the Nuggets too, that's also a benefit, right? You kept them away from the Suns, who are now a contender against you in the Western Conference.
Well, they did keep him away from the Suns, but they weren't able to keep Terrence Ross away from the Suns, who was it felt like he was in trade rumors for like a decade with the
Yeah.
Orlando Magic, but ultimately gets bought out by Orlando and is going to land with Phoenix, give them another option there on the wing. The guy can still score. What do you think about that landing spot for Terrence Ross when finally the dust settles and he exits Orlando?
I think it's generally fine. They've already got Damian Lee, who's playing a very
Yeah.
similar role as kind of the designated bench shooter. And at this point, I think Damian Lee is probably a more consistent, reliable guy than Terrence Ross is. Terrence Ross is the kind of guy who can come in, and the next thing you know, he's like 8 for 10 from three,
Yeah.
and he's won the game. And then the next night, he might be 1 for 10 from three, and he's kind of shot you out of it. That's just, well, what he is. He heats up very quickly. But I think for Phoenix, this is they had to rebuild their depth a little bit after the trades that they made. A little bit more cover on the wing for them. So yeah, good addition. Dallas was trying to get him. I know the Celtics were looking at him. The Lakers looked at him. A handful of teams all kind of were like, all right, we're going to hear these same teams until they get their wing guys. It's going to be the same group of teams that's going to be they're interested. They're interested. They're interested. In this case, the Suns got him. And I think if you're Ross, you're looking at it as, hey, that's a team that now has a chance to win, and I can play. I say this all the time with buyout guys. It's three things that become the factor: is the team a contender? Is there a real role for me / minutes to play? And what's the money going to be?
Yeah.
Often cases, the money is the same. It's usually a prorated veteran minimum. In the case of a guy like Joe Wieskamp, he's not a true veteran buyout guy, but he got a little more. We're going to talk about Danny Green in a
Yeah.
minute. It sounds like he got a little bit more money. Sometimes teams have an MLE. The Celtics, for example, they have the disabled player exception. So sometimes you can outbid teams money wise, but generally the money's pretty close to the same. So then it becomes, what's my role going to be? Team can win. Suns obviously can win, and they've got minutes available. So that's why they land a guy like Ross.
And keep in mind, these buyout guys, they're all on expiring deals. So
Mhm.
they've got to be looking out for what is going to provide the greatest opportunity for me to showcase my skills so I get another contract this coming summer. So location and stuff like that doesn't matter nearly as much as it might
Mhm.
if a guy is signing like a 4-year deal. This is
Correct.
just a, hey, where's their opportunity for me to really showcase myself and ideally win basketball games while doing that. So it's a different set of priorities when players are signing deals off the buyout market than when they're in free agency, at least in most cases.
Yeah, that's a
Um, you
great point.
you mentioned Danny Green, winds up with the Cavs. We Is that official? Official? He's with the Cavs. There was a little bit of back and forth on that.
Yeah, I mean, so all these buyouts only happened yesterday. But for the
Right.
most part, yesterday, Sunday. So these guys won't even clear waivers until sometime tomorrow, most likely, depending on when they were waived, or potentially some of them maybe later today, but most of them are going to be Tuesday. Then they can do all these signings because it's 48 hours on waivers. So what we're going to see with Danny Green, with him is he sounds like everything is locked in that he's going to go to the Cavs. Maybe there's a swerve here at the
Well,
end, but it's pretty rare.
he tweeted yesterday, "It's not
Yeah,
done
it's
yet."
not done yet. Yeah,
Right. So
I
that's
saw
what I
that.
was asking if that got kind of clarified. But everything it doesn't sound like it's going to not happen.
Yeah, no
So
one has come back. Like Ross, there was I want to say Woj and Mark Stein and a couple others were like Terrence Ross is headed to the Dallas Mavericks
right.
after a
Yep.
buyout. And then it was like an hour or two later, it was like actually after a last minute pitch by the Suns. So it's kind of one of those things until this is official, like sure. I don't think anybody's locking DeAndre Jordan in a house with a chair against the front door. I'm on these guys, but it's
That was a
pretty
day.
rare that it changes. Yeah, that was amazing. I wish we were doing the show then.
Oh man,
We would have had a blast. And Paul,
that
Paul
was so
Pierce is
awesome.
tweeting pictures of emojis instead of emojis of themselves. But yeah,
That's
Danny
right.
Green, I think the Cavs had a ton of their MLE left over. So that does prorate down, but it sounds like they're gonna give him 2 million, which is about 3 times ish more than what he could get on a prorated veteran minimum. So that part is there. Plus, he's going to have a real role on that team
Mhm.
because they've been looking for another wing for months now. So that's I think a good addition for the Cavaliers.
I mean, coming off of a fairly serious injury, but still hoping that, he can get himself going again. And again, this is a veteran who's been there, who's won championships. Good addition, I think, for the Cavs.
Yeah, and
Uh,
he coming off that injury, he did get into a handful of games with the Grizzlies. He played, looking it up, 3 games with the Grizzlies. Didn't shoot well, but it's literally 3 games, and I think a total of about 43 minutes. So, but he seemed to be moving well, and that's what you're mostly looking for. Like, could he move well? I don't think he's going to be any more the Danny Green that guards 1 through 3. and you
Mhm.
can switch them on to point guards and those kind of things. Those days are probably gone. But I think, come in and play 10 minutes on the wing behind some grouping of Isaac Okoro, Chetty Osman, Karis LeVert. That's fine. A little bit more size in the backcourt for one of the smaller starting groups in the league. This is what the Cavs have been looking for, was one more veteran wing player.
All right. Another veteran signing with the Spurs, Gorgie Jang, who how many times have the Spurs signed and waived Gorgie Jang? It feels like
97.
it's I was going to say it feels like it's a lot,
Yeah,
but he is this will be for the remainder of the season, I believe. So
correct.
Gorgie Jang will stick in San Antonio. They like him a lot. He's a steady veteran presence. You just lost Jakob Poeltl, so I
Mhm.
mean, makes sense. Go with the guy that you know and bring him in and let him be around the young kids and all that.
Yeah, to answer your question, seriously, he was on a 1-year minimum
Mhm.
deal, then was waived from that when they needed a roster space. Then they brought him back on a series of couple of 10-day contracts, and now they've re-signed him for the rest of the year. So this is his fourth contract with San Antonio, and that's exactly what it is. He's a veteran that they love in the locker room. They're very, very happy with him in their locker room, so that's why he's there. He probably will play very little the rest of the way, but he's there, and part of the reason there was a roster spot was waiver that caught me a little bit off guard. I don't know if you want to go to that one
Yeah.
next. That was Stanley Johnson got waived by the Spurs.
Yep.
I wasn't necessarily expecting that one because I
No,
thought,
I wasn't either.
yeah, I was like, all right, they're just going to keep him and give him minutes. But by all accounts, which also this threw me off. This is Stanley Johnson's 8th year in the
Yeah.
NBA. Like I
And
remember
he's
watching
still
that
like
too.
young-ish. Like he's
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
you
he's
know.
not old by any means. I think he's in like his mid-20s. But I remember watching him play like Orlando Summer League and being
Yeah. Oh
like,
yeah.
the hot rookie prospect, and then the second year guy who was there. And yeah, but now he's in a spot where it sounded like he wanted to play with a veteran team, and the Spurs were, or contending team, I should say. And the Spurs were like, okay, we'll let you go and let you move along. So we'll see. I think there's a chance Stanley Johnson actually gets claimed off
He
waivers because
could.
he's on a minimum contract, as opposed to getting all the way through some of these other guys. Like the other two guys, names on the screen, John Wall, Patrick Beverly, their deals are too big to get claimed by 90% of the teams in the league. But Johnson on a minimum contract, almost anybody can claim him. So it wouldn't surprise me if a team just claims him and absorbs the rest of that contract.
Now this is something, Lakers Twitter, as soon as Stanley Johnson got waived, went, "Oh, bring back Stanley Johnson," right? Because he was fairly good for the Lakers
Sure.
when he was with them last year. And it created a little bit of a stir because it came out that they actually can't sign him. And most people were and myself included, were of the thought process, okay, he got traded to Utah, he got waived. You can't sign him after he gets waived. That's part of NBA rules. We've gone in depth into that, why that rule exists for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he signs with the Spurs. If they waive him, that rule no longer is in effect. When in actuality, apparently he would have had to have been traded by the
Correct.
Jazz and then waived by the Spurs in order for the Lakers to be eligible to claim him. So, as far as my understanding goes, the Lakers cannot claim him unless the NBA was to say, well, that's not really how the rule is supposed to work or something like that. But it sounds like it's unlikely he is eligible to sign with the Lakers.
Yeah, and I'm 99% sure that will not happen, that the NBA
Yeah.
will give any kind of special ruling, because they did that in the case of Andrew Bogut several years ago. And it was, yeah, once you're traded to a third team, but that's the key. Like you said, it's traded to, so yeah, once you're traded and then waived, and it almost doesn't matter how long that waiver period takes. If you're traded and waived, that's it. It gets you. That's why it was so crucial a year ago when the Pacers traded, or the Cavaliers traded Ricky Rubio to the Pacers, that the Pacers not waive Rubio. Because had
Yeah.
they waived him at any point, the Cavaliers would not have been able to re-sign him, because it would have triggered that 1-year restriction
Right.
for them. And the Pacers basically kept them all the way through, and off they went. And and then Rubio was able to re-sign. So that's a little bit of the oddity there. There's a lot of stuff, if you dig deep enough into it, you kind of get in, and it's a little tricky and a little messy. But it's like Danilo Gallinari, for example. Spurs waived him after acquiring him from the Hawks. So there was all this thought of, all right, well, the Spurs can't sign him back, and they can't reacquire him. Well, in reality, when the Celtics signed him to a fully new contract, they could trade him back to San Antonio. He just wasn't able to go back to the Hawks because he had been waived. So it's sometimes you got to trace through and chain these things together to find out, all right, where is all these dots connected? And are they or aren't they connected? And you kind of go from there. It gets very confusing.
You start doing the Zach Galifianakis hangover gif,
Yes.
where he's
Yes.
just trying to do all the math and
Yep.
and all that. So what about the other guys on this list, though? John Wall, Patrick Beverley, both waived by their respective teams. John Wall back with Houston again,
Mhm.
two paychecks now, I guess, from the Rockets.
Yeah.
Patrick Beverley with the Orlando Magic. I, I mean, I would between the two, I would have to imagine Patrick Beverley is the more likely player
Oh,
to
without
land
a
with
doubt.
another team.
Yeah.
And where he goes will be interesting to watch. John Wall might be in the Serge Ibaka category, where that could just be that.
Yeah, he may very well be. He has not been. He struggled this year, and it's tough because they think we're at the end now. Maybe this one might be. Maybe he sits for a couple weeks, and then if a point guard injury happens somewhere, a team will jump on bringing him in to close out the year. But part of the problem is, I mean, we talked about Reggie Jackson, Russell Westbrook. Maybe will enter the buyout market. Beverly's already there. John Wall's there. Most teams were pretty set at the position already going into the trade deadline and into the season, really. So that makes it hard to find spots where these guys can really fit and catch on with these teams. We even heard reporting of the Wolves are going to immediately bring back Patrick Beverly. And then go back to our prior conversation, they're allowed because they traded him. Then he was traded and traded again. He's been traded twice since, but the one trade from Utah to the Lakers was enough to remove that restriction. The
Right.
Lakers to Magic just, I guess, further removed it. It didn't really do anything to it, but it's
You are
it's,
extra eligible to
that's it.
return.
Yeah, you're
To
yeah. Now that's like your second cousin 3 times removed at the cookout that you have no idea who this person is, right? Like that's But then the Wolves reporters came out right away and like kind of refuted, like, man,
yeah.
there's nothing really there. And the Wolves don't have an open roster spot as it is. It's not to say they couldn't get there and open one up, but as it stands right now, there's no room. So we'll see. I'm with you though, Patrick Beverly, far more likely to catch on somewhere. We'll see. One other thing I want to know with all these buyouts and all this stuff, because people keep saying, well, it's March 1st, guys have to sign by. That is not what it is. They have to be waived by March 1st. So they just have to be waived by March 1st. Not clear waivers either. It's not like the whole contract guarantee where it has to happen a couple days in advance. This is truly have to be waived by March 1st in order to be playoff eligible. Guys can get waived after March 1st, then they just can't play in the playoffs. I forget who it was now, but we had that situation.
Yeah.
It was with the Clippers. Gosh, they claimed somebody off of waivers from the Miami Heat.
I don't remember.
It'll come to me later. But it was a guard too. But anyway, they Rodney Magruder. They claimed Rodney Magruder off waivers, and then he wasn't playoff eligible because it happened after the March 1st deadline. It's literally called the March 1st is called the playoff eligibility waiver deadline. So as long as guys are waived, they can sign all the way up to the last day of the regular season. That's perfectly fine, but it just have to be waived by then. So John Wall could sit until mid late March, early April, and then it could be, hey, we had a point guard injury, we need a veteran guard going into the postseason, and he could catch on with the team then.
Who's more likely to sign, Kemba Walker or John Wall?
Probably John Wall, I would guess. My guess is just some team will say, yeah, we could throw John Wall in there and be, give us a little bit of playmaking on a second unit and go from there. But that's a good question. I mean, probably really neither one is my. I
Right.
think
Yeah. That's probably the most likely outcome, right? Is neither one of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially if like if Russ or Derrick Rose hits the market, like that's even, those two are far more likely to get signed than
Keith,
either one of these guys.
You've said that twice now on the show. If Russ gets waived, it felt like that was a certainty a few days ago, and now there's a little bit that maybe that may not happen. What do you think Utah does it, or is this just trying to work out the negotiation on the buyout, how much he's going to give back, and all that?
It could be that may be part of it. He may be saying, which is always the player's right, to say, I'm not giving anything back. I'm owed this money and I'm not giving anything back. Just like then it's the team's right to say, cool, then you can sit on the bench every night or not even come in, but we're not letting you free unless you give some of the money back. So that's, it's a two-way street with that. Like we saw with Beverly in Orlando, it was very quickly like, hey, I'm not coming to Orlando. And they're like, great, we don't want you to come to Orlando. Okay, and we'll find out here in the next day or so. He gave back X amount of money, and that's why he's now a free agent. But in Russ's case, you've got that. There's Tony Jones over at The Athletic, who covers the Jazz,
Yep.
did a really good piece on where everything stands. And one of the options is maybe he plays for the Jazz. I tend to think that's less likely because now we're 3-4 days later. He's still not there. I don't think it's all of a sudden going to be, post All-Star break. It's also a weird time though, because sometimes teams will be like, you know what, go, we'll figure this out after the All-Star break and we'll go from there. So maybe we see it pop back up. The other thing that comes up with these situations is a lot of players don't necessarily like playing in the buyout market because what it does is it reestablishes or in most cases establishes you're a minimum guy. And then that's exactly it. It becomes very tricky to get that rep off of you as the year goes along. Or years go along. So that's generally it's kind of okay. Most guys can bounce back from it, but it can be a thing. So we'll see, what happens with Russ. I don't know. I kind of think this might be one where we just don't see him again this year, and then he'll be a free agent. We'll see where it goes this summer.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's certainly possible. That
I think
that he goes that route.
Unless he has like the Bulls, we've heard tagged with him.
Right.
If the Bulls are like, hey, we're going to bring you in, we're going to play you, 30 minutes a night.
And here's a starting spot,
whatever it is. Then that becomes a whole different story. Then it's like, all right, let's go. I'll sign up and we move along. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, the Mavs did not get Terrence Ross, but they are going to get Justin Holiday after he secured a buyout with the Rockets. Is this? I like Justin Holiday. I don't think this is a terrible. He's not the same player as Terrence Ross, but this is just a fine get for Dallas. I think.
Yeah, I mean they're clearly just on the lookout for shooters to put around Luka and Kyrie. Like let's just load up with some shooters, and that's what Holiday does. He hasn't done it well this year. It wasn't a great fit for him in Atlanta, and they had a lot of other wings, and they quickly turned after Bogdanovich was back. They were like, we still want to play AJ Griffin, the rookie they drafted this year. So it became all right. We're going to move along here from Holiday. So yeah, this is fine. It's probably not going to swing anything, one way or another, but it's another guy with Reggie Bullock, Tim Hardaway. You just kind of throw them in the mix and, whoever's making shots plays, whoever isn't probably sits, and you just kind of keep it moving.
All right. We've got another veteran player. The 76ers have signed Dwayne Dedmon, veteran big. We knew that they needed a backup big, and he'll get into the mix here in Philly. Again, probably not a huge difference maker or anything like that. Maybe not, some of the names that were going around before the trade deadline, but he's a veteran that can go in there and spell Embiid for at least a few minutes.
Yeah, and this is probably again one where this will come into more to play if Embiid is out, whether it's just rest days or if he's he picks up bumps and bruises here and there and misses games. And if he's missing a couple games, then Dedmon probably plays more. Otherwise, they probably continue to roll mostly with Montrezl Harrell, as the backup and just kind of keep playing it up that way. Get by with small ball minutes with PJ Tucker at the 5 against a lot of teams. So, but yeah, I mean, this is one where I think Dedmon looks pretty well done. I don't think he has a lot left. I think he's been pretty bad this season, but we'll see where it kind of goes.
Meanwhile, the Rockets they waived and then re-signed Boban Marjanovic. I said that this was because of the internet outrage at Boban being waived. The Rockets went, oh no, wait, never mind, we take it back, and so they re-signed him. Maybe is that what happened here?
I mean, I think that certainly did happen, and then there was like this clamoring from every other team was like, add Boban. We all like, who doesn't want Boban, right? Like he's just, everybody loves this guy. But that's why the Rockets wanted him back. The Rockets, this is the weird part of the trade deadline where in order to do an unbalanced trade, if you have a full roster, you have to waive a player to do the trade. You can't do the trade and then waive guys. So like a couple people said to me, they're like, why couldn't they just bring in, because it was really that trade where they brought in John Wall in that deal and Danny Green. Why couldn't they're waiving both Green and Wall, just waive one of them? Well, you have to have the roster space to make and complete a legal trade first. So in this case, Boban gets waived. And here's the thing, if you're a Boban fan, you're happy about this because he gets his full salary and now he gets a little bump on top of it because he gets another prorated salary. So it's almost like a little bonus. Now, a couple people said to me, oh, could this be a way a team could do some like salary cap circumvention to give a guy like a bonus of like,
Oh yeah.
hey, like I forget somebody, it was a Celtics fan, but it was something like, waive a player on it, last year of his deal and then re-sign him and just keep doing it and giving him more money, as it goes. And I was like, yeah, right up until the guy's on that first minimum, and then you waive him again, and then every team in the league can claim him. Like
Yeah.
it's not, and then any transaction the NBA can decline for the good of the game, and that
Yeah.
would be you're pulling
They would see
shady
it.
business here. In this case, everybody gets why this happened, and Boban's back with the Rockets, and they love him in that locker room, and they need guys like him on a very very young roster. Now the question is, are they going to keep any of the guys they traded for at the deadline? Because the last
Mm.
man standing is Frank Kaminsky. Already waived Green, Holiday, and Wall. Does Kaminsky stick and it make it through the rest of the year? We'll see.
Interesting to see on that one. The Thunder have converted Eugene Omoruyi, and
Omo
Olivier
Rui.
Sarr. Omorui. Yeah, hey, we're having fun with words today.
Yep.
But the Thunder make a couple of moves here. Thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, so the Thunder at the trade deadline got Justin Jackson for Mike Muscala. They waived Justin Jackson. That opened a roster spot. They convert Eugene Omoruyi. He's a big guy, super athletic. He's played pretty well. It should kind of perk everybody up when the Thunder are converting two-way guys
Yeah,
because they've done some work on the two-way market in the past with Lou Dort and a couple other guys who can really play. So he's just the guy to keep an eye on here. Big forward who can do a lot of athletic stuff. And then Olivier Sarr, who's a player they've had in the past on the Thunder and in their system as a two-way player in the past. They're bringing him back in, big center, kind of, real kind of high project guy, I guess, is they've there's a lot of work to be done with him. So making moves there in OKC to kind of keep things. And by all accounts, sounds like they're going to keep Dario Saric on the roster and not waive him after they acquired him at the deadline and what was really a tax saving move. But
yeah.
the Thunder need bigs because they've had some other big guys out and they traded Muscala. So it sounds like Saric is going to actually stick there in OKC. We'll see if that holds the rest of the year or not.
This team could be really interesting next year when Chet Holmgren comes back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
seeing the things that SGA has done, that it could
Mm-hmm.
be a really interesting squad for next year.
Yep. Yep.
The Wizards are signing Quentin Jackson to a two-way deal. We're starting to see teams, make kind of moves like this. But what are your thoughts here on Quentin Jackson landing with Washington?
Yeah, super athletic wing, plays really hard. He's a guy who was playing in the G League. He really gets after it defensively. Just that's not something that's in a lot of supply in Washington. So I think adding a wing that can maybe play a little bit of defense. Let's see what it looks like. But he's a we'll see. That they've kind of taken flyers like this in years past. Would not surprise me if this point in the year, if this is a 2-year, two-way contract. Washington has liked to do that in the past. They did that with Jordan Shackle, who they kept for part of this season. Keep an eye on Jordan Goodwin, who after Will Barton is bought out by the Wizards, I think, man, my Boston accent
I
kicking in
heard it
here. I get
there. The
super
Wizards.
excited. My wife is even shaking her head at me. Yeah, after the Wizards do the buyout with Will Barton, they're gonna do that buyout. They're gonna convert Jordan Goodwin into a standard contract because he's played that well for them.
There's going to be quite a race, I think, to get Will Barton right now. When
I
when
think
he
so
does
too.
when he does secure a buyout, there's going to be a lot of teams after him on the market because they're
But I think Will
wings are always in
Barton's
high
gonna
demand.
land in Boston. They really like him and they have a need on the wing for a guy like that. So we'll see.
Put him next to Marcus Smart.
Yeah, that's it. I'll play with Marcus Smart, do some stuff on the buyout market.
Oh my gosh. Oh no. Somewhere Ben Affleck is smiling right now.
Yes.
All right, let's
Put me in a
let's
movie.
let's get into the 10-day signings here.
I'm gonna whip
Uh
through these very quickly.
yep.
Um uh Jamari Bouye to the Miami Heat. They needed a guard. He's an interesting guy. He was playing really, really well for their G League affiliate. Again, another team when they start bringing guys in from their G League team, you should take notice because they do really well with developing their guys. Kyle Lowry's been injured, so they brought him in from their G League team. They're a team that's also sitting on roster spots, potential conversions coming there. So keep an eye on that one with them. Then we saw now blanking on the other ones, and I said I was going to do these. What were they? It was Chris Silva signed another 10-day with the Dallas Mavericks. So he had been with them pre All-Star or pre-trade deadline rather. So still now gonna finish out another 10-day. And then Stanley Umude to the Pistons on a 10-day contract. Again, another guy from the G League system that they're bringing in just to kind of see. He's a wing guy. A lot of teams had interest in him at the draft, and then he ultimately went through camp with the Pistons. These are also sometimes kind of almost pre-summer league looks where it's like, let's get them in, let's see what they look like. And then if a guy then resurfaces as part of a team summer league team, then you kind of, all right, there might be something there, maybe a little bit more to keep an eye on.
Right. Yep. Teams are already starting to look ahead to next season with some of these moves, as Rob Pelinka called it the other day, pre-agency, right? Looking ahead to the summer and to next season and all of that.
I want to say one quick thing on that.
Yeah.
I had a couple people reach out if we could do a show where we kind of get into the Lakers cap space stuff and what it could look like. We'll probably, and I don't want to speak for you over on the Lakers Nation side, but since that's a very Lakers specific topic, we'll probably run like a combo where it's on both channels or something, but we'll do that as a one-off with that as like the whole show, because there's a lot of interesting things we can get into with the Lakers and what they could do and can't do this summer. So we'll get into all that stuff.
I spent about a half hour of the Lakers Nation podcast I recorded last night. It's posted now, breaking that down and basically getting into, what their decision making is going to be in terms of the luxury tax and the repeater and all that sort of stuff. But it was mostly from a kind of broad perspective. So yeah, I think we can definitely drill down a little bit further into it and look at, hey, what are the exact numbers and figure out what it is they can and can't do this summer. So yeah, that's something we can absolutely do.
Yep.
All right. I think that about wraps things up for today. Make sure you are subscribing right here to the NBA Front Office show on YouTube, as well as the podcast version over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you're listening to podcasts. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with more NBA news, all the latest. Till then, see ya and stay safe.